Some of these positions the Eagles have right now that may seem minimal may become bigger needs in this draft, where every day that passes by in free agency, the Eagles are making more moves, and there might be some more glaring needs than we realize going forward. And we have a lot to discuss here, so let's get straight into it.
A killer buried, but not dead.
Darren, we better turn around. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what is going on, guys? I hope it's a fantastic day today. This video is sponsored by BetUS, so definitely go check them out if you guys have not. So, it's been mostly a week and a half of free agency so far. The Eagles have made their trades. They've made their signings. They have let guys go get their money, feel fulfilled, go get their money with other teams, okay? This has been, the Eagles are relying on this draft 100%, and they're signing low, cost-effective type signings that have really big ceilings, okay? Now, I kind of want to do a recap quick because I feel like, are the Eagles really good at the cornerback position right now? That's what I'm trying to really figure out, because I feel like when we went into this thing this year, this offseason, the big question was Slay leaving? And he did, okay? Obviously, Quinyon Mitchell's here. Cooper DeJean is here. I think the speculation of DeJean moving to the outside has kind of died a lot now. Kelee Ringo, every Georgia Bulldog so far has really panned out for us, and Kelee Ringo is now really the last one in the mix right now that really hasn't got his shot. Okay, the Adoree Jackson sign was a good sign for the Eagles. Another guy that could bet on himself. Okay, a guy that's 29, turning 30, probably the oldest player that they did sign, which we were kind of surprised on that. Adoree Jackson, a part of a really bad Giants team. Okay, we've gotten ex-Giants players and what they've turned out to be. Okay, so if they're putting a lot of a big focal point into Kelee Ringo, what if he doesn't make it out of camp? What if he doesn't make it out of camp being victorious at that cornerback 2 spot? Well, Adoree Jackson could come in and play that outside corner spot if you really need him to kind of reinvent himself in his career with really good pieces around him and a really good defense under Vic Fangio. Okay. When we acquired James Bradbury a few years ago in 2022, he gave up over 800 yards receiving against wide receivers in 22, and on the Giants, that looked really bad. And with the Eagles, he was one of the best cornerbacks. Saquon Barkley, the Giants never really unlocked that extra gear with him, never really put weapons in that offense, really haven't done a good job and making Saquon Barkley that face of the offense pretty much with the New York Giants. They didn't really put too much worth into it, to be honest with you. Really didn't help him out. And look what he did in Philadelphia last year. Okay, if you're talking about ex-Giant players. But Kelee Ringo, I wonder how the Eagles feel right now. And it almost looks like there will be a competition at that cornerback 2 spot. For me, Ringo hasn't played enough. This is not me saying that he's going to be a bad player, he's playing great right now, or anything like that. I'm really in the middle with Kelee Ringo right now. It comes down to reps, and it comes down to opportunity. And I think signing Adoree Jackson really showed, Kelee Ringo, this is your job to lose. I'm not giving you this job for free. You're going to earn it on yourself. No one's getting a job. I'm not just giving you a free job, and you're just going to be put in there and not even earn it, and I'm just going to make up my mind right now. You're going to go against Adoree Jackson. And obviously, they're going to add more bodies to this cornerback spot, too, because I feel like inside corner behind DeJean, there is absolutely nothing there. So I really hope they don't take that cheap route and go get Avonte Maddox or do anything like that. But the cornerback 2 spot, I know there are a lot of Eagle fans high on Ringo. And there's Eagle fans right now that think he has stiff hips and he can't, that he really can't do it. Okay, but because he's only 21 years old, 22? I forgot. He's very young. Okay, with a few more years left on his contract, there's time to really get him ready and prepared and see what he could do for that cornerback 2 spot. And having a savvy vet like Adoree Jackson, which I think was a really good signing, it's okay to sign a vet, behind a young guy that's trying to compete for a job. But Keely Ringo, number one, has to stay healthy. Number two, has got to, get his reps and play well and get the opportunity he deserves. And we're going to see if he flourishes here. DeJean going to the outside probably is never going to happen. As soon as they sign Adoree Jackson, I kind of already knew that the competition was going to be between two guys at that outside corner spot. And I don't think that the Eagles are ready to draft another DB early this year. Could be drafting a DB in the mid-rounds. We'll see what happens with that. But to draft another DB in the first round, to put that much into it, look, you're not drafting a number two a DB in the first round as a number two to kind of waste him for 4 or 5 years, not re-sign him because Quinyon Mitchell and DeJean are going to get paid. So to put that much into DB when you can already look at the roster now and see what Keely Ringo could do with Adoree Jackson behind him would probably be the smarter move, to be honest with you. And if you draft a cornerback too late to compete, then he's probably not going to play well on the outside at cornerback 2 across from Quinyon Mitchell. So I think the Keely Ringo move doesn't really worry me too much with Adoree Jackson behind him. He's just got to get a lot of reps in this offseason program because all of this correlates to the draft. Like, I think DB is, cornerback, I think, is off the table when it comes to the early first 2 rounds of this draft. Probably not going to be there. The Eagles are probably not going in that direction. Now, if you want to talk about edge rusher, has edge rusher become a finished product now because you feel pretty good about Nolan Smith? I mean, 4 or 5 sacks in the playoffs. He's really come within his own. I don't blame him for the 23 season because the Eagles really never gave him an opportunity. And when they did, this whole entire defense was falling apart. The bad coaching behind it, no self-urgency, no awareness. They look like they gave up. Okay, and I was wrong. I humbled myself, my own words, because I didn't think Nolan Smith was going to do much in 24, and look what he has done. I mean, it's almost like Nolan Smith had to redo his year. Like, part of his season was his preseason and really trying to catch on as the games were going by. Then post-June bye week, the post-bye week happened, and he just flourished. I'm really happy about Jalix Hunt, another guy that really had to climb his way back up, and I think Jalix Hunt should have had more reps early in the season, and getting used to the game and getting used to the speed of the game and all of that, and I think he's done a fantastic job. So you're really hoping that Nolan Smith stays on the high road right now of where he's at, and Jalix Hunt that's starting to really climb to be something very special. Because realistically, look, like, I don't think you can always replace guys like Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, but I think as a building block process when it comes to the offseason program, mini camp, training camp, preseason games, getting to that regular season, I think you build something really nice with some of these guys. And I think those 2 guys are going to get the majority of the reps. Jalix Hunt, Nolan Smith, majority of the reps in training camp, okay? But because, like, you go into this free agency, and what did you get out of it, okay? You end up getting Azeez Ojulari that had 6 sacks last year, has only had really 1 healthy season of 16-plus games played. Okay, but statistically, he's played less games and has had more productivity in a lot of seasons. Okay, I know that the 23 season he only had 2 sacks, but if he's getting a 4-sack season, 6-sack season, he's been relatively very productive. Okay, it just, for him to stay on his own 2 feet for an entire season, I think Ojulari, will be huge this year. He will be definitely huge to this rotation, and I think he's really going to bloom. I think he's going to flourish in Philadelphia. I think he's going to bloom so well. I'm very excited about him. On top of Joshua Uche as well, that, because he plays in Spags defense, got traded to KC middle of the season last year, and it's a very diverse, multi-dimensional defense that he has to learn mid-season getting traded to KC. It's not the easiest thing to do, so most of the time he was a healthy scratch, only played in 6 games last year, but really building that reputation that Joshua Uche had with the Patriots, having that 11.5 sack season he had in 22. You have 2 guys that are low risk with high ceiling beyond. And I think that's very exciting. These are 2 big gambles for this defensive line. But could I say that the Eagles are done in the draft when it comes to edge rusher. I think edge rusher has become the minority pick in this draft, realistically. I really do. Because I think the Eagles have had more interest in offensive line. I think they've had more interest in safety. And, linebacker spot will be another thing the Eagles will have to figure out too, because I still think they need depth at that position, which we're kind of getting into that position as of right now, because Trotter Jr. might finally have he might have an opportunity here. The only nitpick that I have on Trotter Jr., what he needs to get better at, is wrapping up in the backfield. How many times have you seen him wrap up for a 3-4 yard loss and he lets the guy go? So he's had some bad tackling on the little tiny bit of the reps that he's had. You know what I mean? He had an opportunity in the playoffs to beat Orton Burks out of his spot to start in the playoffs, but Orton Burks was playing so well to a point where Fangio was like, I'm not going to make changes at this point. If Orton Burks is playing well, Trotter Jr. is going to have to take a back seat. Okay, take a back seat there. So you re-signed Zach Bond, which was the number one priority in Philadelphia. Okay, Trotter Jr. seems like the next guy is going to come up and step up as that, maybe the outside linebacker, because obviously I don't think they'll make Trotter Jr. the green dot. Maybe they will. I don't know. We'll see when camp hits what they're going to do there. But other than that, there's nothing behind them. I mean, you have Ben Van Simmeren that if you looked on the website, the Eagles have him listed as a fullback right now. So will he still work with the linebackers, or will he get a majority of his reps with the fullbacks? So we'll see what happens with that. And, Patrick Johnson is signed, okay? Was with the 7th round pick, I think a 7th round pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. So they brought him back on a 1-year deal. But do they see him more as an edge rusher, or will they put him as a depth piece for a linebacker? Or do they go into this draft, maybe the 2nd round, and maybe they don't feel good about Trotter Jr. Maybe they want to put somebody in front of him. Maybe they want to draft another guy. Because when you think about it realistically, you got Zach Bond for realistically, it's a 3-year contract, but realistically, it's a 2-year contract. Okay. Trotter's here for 3 more years, counting this season, and there's really nothing else behind it. So I don't know if linebackers become the biggest need of this draft going forward, because another philosophy that could be broken. Not only you pay a running back a lot of money, not only you pay a running back and then give him a monster extension, you sign Zach Bond to big money, which the Eagles haven't done, but drafting a linebacker pretty damn early is another philosophy the Eagles haven't broke yet, and potentially they could do that again in this draft. And there's a bunch of guys they could get. So I feel like linebacker could be one of those biggest needs in this draft, as much as safety, I think, has been the big glaring hole right now, because there's just nothing there until they sign a bridge safety. I'm kind of sticking with safety right now, but like I said, you have picks that they could trade back to that pick at 32. They could trade up with 32, and they could stay in that 2nd round and maybe pick up a linebacker. We're going to find out the answers of a lot of these right now. It used to be edge rusher, but it might not be anymore. We used to not think safety was a big need. Tight end could be a big need for the Eagles. Okay, with Dallas Goedert ready to roll out of here any moment, any day. They signed 4 tight ends at this point. One being pretty promising to start in front of Calcaterra, as Calcaterra will become a free agent after this season, as well as Dallas Goedert. But if you're getting a draft pick for Dallas Goedert, then I expect the tight end position is going to be a big reset going forward, and tight end could end up being a big need. So, like I said, things do change over time. What we think about after the Super Bowl, at the start of free agency, to where we are now, a week and a half later, into free agency, moves that maybe we have disagreed on, moves that we've actually liked, but Howie told us to stay patient as Eagle fans, trust the process, and we'll see what happens. So, guys, let me know in the comment section below. What do you think is the Eagles' biggest need, okay, from where we started to now where we are a week and a half in the free agency? What has the Eagles? The Eagles have the biggest need. Where is it? Is it linebacker? Is it safety? Has tight end become a big need now? Do you trust the Eagles to re-sign Dallas Goedert, or do you think he's already out the door? So, edge rusher might not be the biggest need anymore, or it might not even be the second biggest need anymore, because I think other positions are starting to get very glaring when you're really staring at them straight in the face. So kind of been thinking about it. We'll see what happens. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Eagles news every single day, and make sure you hit the like button because it helps out tremendously. You guys have a fantastic day. Appreciate you being here for the big rant, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Shicks, what up? Follow slide. Peace out, guys. Peace.